the interplay of Ben Franklin's virtues in Gatsby's life, decoding a masterpiece, the cowboy persona and the Wild West, by Walter Brown. Unveil the hidden illusions. For the casual reader of The Great Gatsby, you may not know many of the allusions in the novel. An allusion is an implied or indirect reference to a person, event, or thing. For instance, if I wrote my friend resembles Yoda, I'm summoning that diminutive, green-toned Jedi Knight. While far, far away from Dagobah, The Great Gatsby is solidly set close on Long Island and New York City. Well, close for me, I'm in New Jersey. But it's 1922, yet everybody hails from the Middle West. Nick says, "It has been a story of the West." In Fitzgerald's Gatsby, which turns 100 years this year, 2025, an essential illusion sprouts at the end of chapter 9. That's a weird verb. This consummates the Wild West motif Fitzgerald has been cultivating throughout the narrative. Sprout, cultivate. See what I'm doing there? Anyway, sorry. Mr. Katz, Jay Gatsby's haggard father, travels from Chicago to New York for the funeral. He takes from his pocket a ragged old copy of a book called Hopalong Cassidy. Now, this was a Western series created by Clarence Mulford in 1904. It was very popular. It spanned 28 books. And Mulford portrayed the character as rude, dangerous, and rough-talking. Sounds like Down with Bound. Sorry. Doesn't that sound like Gatsby? Not the persona with affected speech and pink suits, but his basic Old West, genuine roughneck character. His real name is James Gatz. Gatsby's Wild West Odyssey. The book Hopalong Cassidy is some souvenir, an example of veritas, like the souvenirs Gatsby shows Nick in Chapter 4 to verify his background. Just why does he bring it with him? Like father, like son. And again, souvenir, comes from the French, we remember kind of thing. And then he says, look, I wanted to prove that my young son, who was poor, a clam digger, wanted to improve himself. The notes from the boy, James Gatz, represented the remaking of self in the land of opportunity. You can work hard to become your own Ben Franklin, a success, a great Gatsby. It's one of the hallmarks and myths of America. Nick Carraway writes, on the last flyleaf was printed the word schedule, and on the date September 12th, 1906, and underneath, and this is what James Gatz was doing. He was making a schedule, rise from bed, dumbbell exercise, work, baseball, and then he has the times, like someone who has ADHD like me, doing something like this can really work, but then sometimes you just forget about it. But then the father tells Nick Carraway, Jimmy was bound to get ahead. He always had some resolves like this or something. Do you notice that what he's got about improving his mind? Right. Uncovering the roots of self-help. I used to have a wall of self-improvement. If my girl said, Dad, don't pick your nose in front of us, I would write that on a note and stick it to the computer hutch. Make sure you don't cut chicken and cantaloupe with the same knife because you're going to give us salmonella. Sticky note. Fitzgerald takes this idea from Ben Franklin, just like my wall of self-improvement. In his famous autobiography of 1791, Franklin writes, this is what I'm going to do every single day in order to become morally perfect. Well, I kind of paraphrase that. Now that's so Franklin, right? It's the age of reason, the Enlightenment. How can I become a better person? He wakes up and says, what good will I do today? He dedicates 3 hours, Ben Franklin, for breakfast, 3 hours, getting ready, looking through papers and stuff. He works 4 hours, then takes 2 hours for lunch. Fantastic. Then he works another 4 hours. That's it. He's only working, according to Ben Franklin, an 8-hour day. Then he writes, here are my 13 virtues. I'm going to practice these, and whenever I make a mistake, I'm going to put a little asterisk by that day. We could think of Ben Franklin as really our first self-help guru. He was really also I forget what writer said he was our first yuppie and really our first millionaire. So this is the legacy of this is what's in Franklin's book, and Walter Isaacson, says he was our first yuppie, and he would be familiar and okay with technology and what's going on. And of all the founding fathers, we could probably think of him as the one who would be looking at the gadgets or be interested in AI. I don't see Hamilton or Jefferson or John Adams being interested in the technology. But Franklin, yeah, Franklin, it would be. Fitzgerald takes elements of the West and American history and creates Gatsby as a cowboy figure, a rogue figure, self-reliant, someone outside the norm of society. Now, the original idea of a cowboy back in the day, right, 19th century, the Wild West, I mean, they were bad. I mean, they were like stealing horses, and that was not a compliment, calling someone a cowboy. But that has changed over the years. And this idea of intertextuality is the intermingling of text and enhancing of text. So in class today, well, back when I taught this book for 22 years, Great Gatsby, now retired, but now teaching college. And I handed out Franklin. It says, why are we looking at Ben Franklin? Is this our new book? No, let's just take a look at pages 66 through 69. And here's Gatsby. Here's Ben Franklin. You have the two texts speaking to each other. These are the number of years separating them, but the texts are speaking to each other. Ben Franklin speaking to Fitzgerald. Ben Franklin speaking to Fitzgerald, both speaking to me, and now me speaking it to you, right? And of course, Fitzgerald is also a self-made man who was relatively poor in St. Paul, Minnesota. He always felt like the poor kid. His mother had money from family, but his dad was a busted salesman who owned a shop, and he felt like in Princeton, he was not part of the rich crew. He was a poor boy trying to make it. And of course, he needed to make money to marry Zelda, because poor boys don't marry rich girls, right? Right. So we could see why Fitzgerald would see in Ben Franklin a type of role model. And then, of course, he gives that role model to J. Gatsby. The power of intertextuality. Practicality. Using your sources and using sources that you have the power. And then, of course, putting them into his alter ego, the Great Gatsby. I find it really interesting. And then, of course, I had my students say, okay, let's go through these 13. And they made little schedules. And where do you waste time? Oh, my goodness, right? It's all about self-improvement. And we talked about Emerson. So there are layers in these books, right? Wait a second. Why is Hopalong Cassidy? You might want to do some research. And then you'll find that this is actually true, right? I've read other books about this, but I remember reading the first time, seriously reading and teaching it. And I'm like, wait. I'm a big U.S. history fan. And I'm like, this is Ben Franklin. This is definitely Franklin. And it's all about self-improvement. Hundreds of things I need to improve on. Thousands. But again, you tackle each one and you get a little bit better and a little bit better. Here are the 13 virtues from Franklin. Like Franklin, almost most have issues with order. He had horrible issues with order and maybe humility, which is overrated in the Book of Bound. Joking, obviously. All right, so temperance, silence, order, resolution, frugality, industry, sincerity, justice, moderation, cleanliness, tranquility, chastity. I don't really want to know my students about that one. I said, you can just leave that one blank. It's not my business. And humility, right? Imitates Jesus and Socrates. All right, we could use that today in 2025 in America. If we look through these 13 virtues of Ben Franklin, Gatsby has almost all of them, except for a couple, which are major. He's temperate. He does not drink. He's not gluttonous. We rarely see him eat. He's frugal when it comes to his own lifestyle. His bedroom is very basic. Everything else is for show. He doesn't care about any of it because it's all there for a reason. It's the show to attract Daisy. So his haste to make his house into a sun is in order to attract Daisy. It's not as noble as creating the bifocal lens, the Franklin stove, University of Penn, the lending library, fire companies, and a cornerstone to American liberty, but at least Gatsby had purpose, a green light. Everyone else was a selfish, self-centered narcissist. Thank you so much for listening, and happy reading. Cheers.